me check with YouTube and see if they're doing right by us tonight. We are live. It says we are live.
Okay.
So hello, good evening, and welcome. We've gone off the farm, people.
Tonight?
Oh, we gotta... We are live. It says... Yeah, okay. So we've gone off the farm, people. Welcome to the latest stream of Republic News with your hostess, Liviana. I am your hostess, Liviana, and with me I have two friends, Anime-Mun and Union Aerospace. Can't read your guys' names right now, but okay. You guys want to introduce yourselves again?
Hello, this is Alex Tinsley, the Anime-Mun here. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I now have to introduce myself. My name is Union Aerospace. Just studying a student in the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. Always bringing you the news over here in Spain. Well, or whatever is the news or not the news, whatever.
While you can.
Well, I can, because my freedom of speech is threatened by the imminent release of Article 13, which is promoted by the dystopic tyrannical Euroreich.
Yes, we will talk about that momentarily.
Yep, I was gonna mention several things about it, and before we continue, I want to say several things about it. Article 13 is the proof that this fucking union is a fucking failure in all kinds of levels. We were fed lies by the Germanic countries about how we were living above our possibilities, how we had to assume the debts and pay it to the German bankers, debts that our government incurred and our banks incurred. For example, the bank and oh shit, I'm sounding like Tim Culverings from Team America at this point. What yeah.
You know, when you put it like that, it's almost like Germany's pissed off for having to pay reparations for World War II.
At this point, my dad is convincingly pissed about this, and he said to me once that he wouldn't have minded if a single atom bomb was dropped on Germany before the war ended. Mostly because he believes that most of the austerity measures are being pushed by the German Federal Republic, which ironically the German Federal Republic seems to have a very big voice in the European Union.
That has a curious thought crossed my mind now. You know how people like to joke about how the reason anime exists is because of the atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Yep, anime must have a mistake. Well, go on.
If we dropped an atom bomb on Germany, would that mean we'd get German anime?
No, would be an interesting yet terrifying idea.
Well, it all depends on whether the anime were made by Northern Germans or Southern Germans, because in Germany there is a stereotype. The people in Bavaria point at the people in the north and say they're far too serious, and the people up north point at the Bavarians and say they don't know how to be serious.
To be honest, I prefer Southern Germans over Northern Germans. Mostly because I've been there, living 5 years in Germany.
Ooh.
Except the ones in Berlin. The ones in Berlin are very fairly open about what they do, and they're very nice people. Well, they've been traditionally some of the most cosmopolitan cities in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
There was a reason why during the Weimar Republic, Berlin was called the Red Berlin. It was one of the cities that voted the least to the Nazis. And the Nazis never forgave that, Because you know what they planned to do with Berlin and after the war was over? They wanted to demolish it and rebuild it from scratch, renaming it Welthauptstadt Germania. Never seen those Never seen those images of some sort of giant building with a huge dome on it?
No.
So that's where that crap came from?
Volkshalle. Yes, that was his vision. What he was gonna do with Berlin. That was his vision. Some sort of massive parliament. Let's call it that way. Some sort of massive parliament in which the full power of the Nazi regime would be put into display. What better way to show your power by building something huge?
That also explains some depictions that have been made in anime of some German or German-inspired nation states. One of the most well-known in the anime sphere being the Principality of Zeon.
Quality of Sion, huh? Tell me more, please.
Okay, this is from the anime Mobile Suit Gundam in their Universal Century. It's basically been 79 years since we had started colonizing space with colonies that are in O'Neill cylinders that orbit Lagrange points of the Earth.
Go on.
Each one's about 1,000 kilometers long, sort of thing. And groups of them are called sides.
Mm-hmm.
Side 3, which is a group of, I think it's 6 different colonies, make up what's called the Principality of Zeon, which broke free from the Earth federal government.
Wait,
because at that time, we had gotten to the point to where we could have a true global state. So this is supposed to be far into the future.
Yep. Well, I was checking, I was Googling it, the Principality of Sion, and fucking shit. It's really the Third Reich in space.
Yeah. The biggest leader of their army is named Girin Zabi.
What?
And yeah, his name is Girin Zabi, and in the actual show, his father Daegwon described the atrocities of Hitler to him. You want to know what Girin said?
What does he say?
Sounds like he had the right idea.
Holy shit. So basically the concept is the same. Some sort of massive military superstate that, tries to destroy the Federation
based
or something?
Around the Space Noids being the master race. Because they're giving birth to what are called new types who have enhanced spatial awareness due to living out in space. In other words, the next evolution of humanity.
And they consider themselves their master race because of it.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Hell, they even have the Kriegsmarine flag, or, an interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Holy crap, this is actually really cool. How the fuck hasn't anyone read about this at this point?
Universal Century, which is the specific universe of Gundam, because it's a multiverse, basically. It spans so much lore. It rivals Star Trek in the amount of lore there is on it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Everything from the science down to the political divides is painstakingly planned.
Well,
and the major difference, while Star Trek just kills red shirts, Gundam kills main characters.
Oh yeah, I heard that Gundam makes main characters die off by the droves from what I'm hearing.
The nickname for the creator is Yoshiyuki Kill 'Em All Tomino.
Kill 'em all. So he was beating George R.R. Martin on his stick. Oh.
George R.R. Martin took notes from Tomino.
Oh, he did? Holy.
Even down to the incest.
Incest. He really was not pulling any punches.
No.
I was gonna tell you a thing. Now that you were mentioning Third Reich lookalikes, have you ever heard about the thing called the Helgen Empire?
A little bit. But before we get to that, just to show you the image of the new type they found to be the strongest amongst all of Xeon, look up Char Aznable.
Char Aznable. Can you send me for a message of it in order to look at it?
No, but I could spell the name for you.
Yep. Okay then.
C-H-A-R.
C what?
C-H-A-R.
Uh-huh.
A-Z.
Char Aznable. Yeah, I got him. Who the hell is this guy?
The top ace of the Principality of Xeon.
Huh. Blonde-haired, blue eyes. He's your prototype Aryan.
Wait, Xeon. I've heard this before. Where is this from?
A pseudonym for him. Kozval Daikun. Xeon Sun Daikun, the founder Principality of Xeon.
Wasn't there something in the Star Trek episode Patterns of Force about the Xeons? There was an episode of Star Trek, the original series, called Patterns of Force. It's the one where they beam down to the planet, which has become influenced by Nazism after a...
Oh, I remember that episode. That one was fun.
Yeah, I think one of the two groups there was called Xeons, and I've forgotten which one. Let me look it up real quick.
Well, told me before.
Yeah. Now to one of the best. I'm going to suggest 3 movies.
You guys okay?
Top of that, watch Mobile Suit Gundam. The 1 year war. By the time the main involved, you know the entire Sydney, Australia?
Yeah.
That's gone. Cratered.
Blew up us.
Okay, here I go. I found it at Memory Alpha. It says...
a colony drop.
When these guys beamed down, Kirk and
So they
Spock...
took an empty colony and dropped...
I think you're roboting out again.
Yeah.
That's the issue, Liviana.
Well, that's weird, because I hear Anime-Mun roboting out.
Maybe it works both ways?
I found what I was looking
think that's what's
for.
happening here.
Here we go at Memory Alpha. It talks about this episode, Patterns of Force. It says, so there was a guy called Gill. He was, let's see, John Gill, a noted historian, brilliant history teacher, had been one of Kirk's instructors at the academy. So they're going to this planet to find out what's happened to him. In this case, the inhabitants of the neighboring planet Xeon, and the
Something tells me that's not an accident.
Me neither. At this point, me neither.
Yeah, I would highly suggest it. There's a whole lot to Gundam. Like I said, there's stuff from the science aspects of it to all the way to the political aspects.
Can imagine.
Like they
their own.
It's called Minovsky physics.
Minovsky physics. How does that work?
Well, they managed to figure out a way to make what they call ultra compact nuclear fusion reactors using a new type of particle.
Okay, that's actually really... Go on.
That's named after their creator, Professor Minovsky. Here's the catch. So you know basic radar?
Yeah. Basic radar, what about it? Oh.
Completely and utterly boned.
Completely useless.
Yeah.
Fuck, so...
If these particles are robots are piloted by usually a single pilot, sometimes, but not in quite the same way. Like, so the ones with the two pilots, one of them is called a gun tank. And it's basically a tank with a human torso on top. You have one gunner and one driver.
Oh, I see. So one moves the thing, the other one shoots.
Yeah. And the titular Gundam mobile suit has one pilot in a torso-based cockpit with a head full of sensors. It can also wield a plasma-based beam saber and has beam rifle capacities.
Huh. Looks like they have everything figured out in that series.
Oh, yeah. And this was made originally in 1979.
Golden age of anime, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh.
Basically, anything that's considered real robot has Gundam to thank for it.
Well, how come you're a big fan of Gundam from what I'm getting out of this? Because you seem to know a lot of it.
Huge fan of Gundam.
Huge fan of it. Well, let me assure you that I'm gonna take a look at it in the near future about it. I hope as well that it wouldn't disappoint
me. Wait until you find the model kits.
Model kits?
Model kits.
Okay, explain me what do they do?
Wait. Before you do that, let me hop in here and say, Alex, you need to play Star Trek Online. When you get to the Delta Quadrant missions, you'll be fighting the VOD War, and they have these little tanks that crawl around on like tentacle-like legs, and they've got a lot of mech type stuff. There are also mech suits that are used by the Voth in the Dyson Sphere. And it's pretty interesting. You might find it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a big. I don't play Star Trek Online, but I never figured Star Trek of having mecha-like enemies around. You were gonna say something about the modeling kits. You please continue.
Yeah, in Japan, they have a special word for it.
Well, like what?
Gunpla.
Oh, okay. Gum what, please?
Gunpla. It's short for Gundam Classic models.
Oh, Gunpla.
They come in different scales and different complexities. You have high
Really
grade,
nice.
which is a 1:144 scale kit, usually about the size of a normal action figure.
Nice.
Then you've got the 1:100 master grade kits, which have a lot of mechanical details in them that you can build. Those are 1:100 scale. Then you have perfect grade. This is a 1:60 scale kit that has an insane amount of detail in it and are usually insanely expensive. We're talking full LED lighting, talking moving pistons, and the ability to have an accurate pilot figure in the cockpit.
Oh, nice. Really nice.
The price ranges for these can go from about $8 to $25 for a high grade, depending on the amount of plastic, of course. $20 to $100 for a master grade.
Oh, really nice.
Perfect grades start out at about $170 and go all the way up to $300 American.
Nice. That's it. Well, that seems like it costs quite the good amount of money.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just recently ordered
things about it.
I just recently ordered a 3D printout of my favorite ship from one of my two main characters in Star Trek Online, which is a Vulcus. It's a 26th or 27th century temporal science intelligence dreadnought. It's really nice. It cost $350, hand painted and digital painting. Yeah, plus the shipping and handling made it over $400.
I have to apologize. I have to go. I gotta get ready for work.
Oh god.
Okay.
$350.
I'll try to be on later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have a good one. I'm sorry I forgot. Later.
Okay, take care.
Okay. Take care, man. Gotta tell you a thing, Joanna. He really fanboyed Gundam a lot.
Oh, he did, yeah.
And like, I've never seen someone so passionate about it. Not that I have anything against it at all. You already knew my interest on it.
Well, my boyfriend will sit and recite lore to me from Warhammer 40k for hours on end. He really knows that stuff.
40k has its good amount of lore, but Joe, can I call you Liv? Thank you, Liv. You gotta understand the thing of Warhammer 40,000 in two things: it's over the top and stupid, and that's why it's awesome. Because the whole grim dark aspect of it, it's so over the top that you can't stop but think that it's also awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
Listen, a human intergalactic empire that has 1 million worlds under its rule. Why not? Why not? How about a massive literal army that is like mostly formed by billions of humans ready to be thrown into the meat grinder? Why the fuck not? And what else? Orcs? Why the fuck not?
Well, don't forget the Daemonettes of Slaanesh.
Yeah, they're not gonna give you a hand job precisely for that. I mean, fucking hell! I always was weirded out by that one in particular. I understand what Korn was. I understand what Nurgle was. I understand what Sinch was. But Slaanesh, I cannot get my head wrapped around it. I know it's supposed to be depravity, pleasure, and such, but I think they're taking it a bit on the extreme side of it, don't you think?
Well, I think it's the whole sadomasochism thing, pleasure and pain mingled together.
Maybe that was the point of it. Maybe that was the point of it. But seeing the Daemonettes like that, and I'm like, what the fuck? But the thing is, it's a universe of awesome, basically. In which I like to call ironically, I'd say that the universe is so awesome and so manly in quotations that it didn't make the women grow beards. And then again, look, great goodness, the outrage mongers would make you believe that there's no badass women in 40K, but they're lying through their teeth when they say that. For example, do you remember that thing called the Sisters of Battle?
Oh yes, I know about the Adepta Sororitas.
The Adepta Sororitas are, well, let me tell you, they're fucking amazing. Hell, they take care of orphanages while purging heresy across the galaxy. You know, like gun-wielding, flamer-crazed space nuns taking care of orphanages? Hey, why not? I can go with it. The really bad problems come when authors try to either make it unironically over the top, as in they try to take it too seriously, or they just ignore the lore and butcher it entirely. I think I'll tell you about a guy called the Cassian Sebastian Godo once, right? Well,
Cassian Sebastian Godo? No, I don't remember that.
Well, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat, and I think you're going to be laughing a lot once I tell you about him. Cassian Sebastian Godo is one of the members of the Black Library, if you know what I mean. The Black Library is basically association of all of the Warhammer authors. They're the Warhammer authors under GW's payroll. There's a lot of awesome writers like Dan Abnett and his Eisenhorn trilogy, but there's also a lot of really bad apples in the mix of it. And one of them is Cassian Sebastian Godo, the author of the Dawn of War series. The author of the Noble series of it, not the video games. The problem with him is that this guy, well, how do you want me to start on this guy? Because, for example, there's a thing called multi-lasers. He has the need to shoehorn. Imagine a sentinel. A sentinel in Warhammer. You know what it is?
No, I'm not terribly familiar with Warhammer. I know a bit about the lore because my boyfriend has regaled me for hours on end about the Horus Heresy and things like that.
Well, do you know Star Wars at least? Well, you do know more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the original trilogy. I haven't watched anything since then.
Well, do you know the Imperial Walkers, the two elect ones? ATSTs.
AT and ATS. Yeah, I know those.
The ATST. Well, Warhammer 40,000 has its own ATST in the Imperial Army. They're smaller, but they carry a huge las cannon, which is used to puncture through armor. Well, Godo took it and made it have 3 of those things in the vehicle. When I see that, I'm like, wouldn't that just make the fucking vehicle explode because of the massive heat it generates? Another thing he makes the Space Marines use is the fucking las guns. The las guns of the Imperial Guard, let me tell you, they're fucking useless. Well, unless they're fired en masse, you know? Individually, they're useless. But fired en masse, they can be devastating. But the thing is, the Space Marines use something called bolters, which are basically huge rifles which fire... I'd like to dare to say that they fire 50 caliber bullets. But they're bullets that they're designed to penetrate in your body, and you know what they do once they go into your body? They explode. They're nasty little buggers, those things.
So they're incendiary rounds?
No, they're not. I wouldn't say incendiary, but they're designed to basically. One guy called it a mini rocket launcher. It's like we're a mini rocket launcher, basically. Because of the power they have, and they're rifles. They're technically rifles, but the Space Marines are so big that they can carry them with no problem whatsoever. Well, Godo thought it was a good idea to make them also use las guns because of it. Because why not? The biggest crimes he did on his thing, though, was how he portrayed the Eldar. You know, I think you already know of the Eldar a bit, from what your boyfriend might have told you. They're basically space elves.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the name even comes from Tolkien. It's the name of the High Elves in Middle-earth.
Yep, that they finally come. Also, by the way, don't call them Eldar anymore. Call them Eldari. Because fucking G-Dubs changed the name again. Fucking hell.
There might have been some kind of legal issue about that, because, you know, that is a Tolkien property.
Yeah, and for example, Imperial Guard, we're not allowed to call it Imperial Guard anymore. We have to call it Astra Militarum now. And I'm really sorry, but Imperial Guard sounds more awesome. And the thing is, the Eldar are specialized in hit-and-run tactics, you know what I mean? They find your weak spot, they fuck you up, and then they run away before you can do anything about it. On and on and on, until you're so weak that they deliver the coup de grace. You could say that they follow some strategy of defeat in detail, you know? And that relies on speed and maneuverability. Well, can you explain me why the fuck would the Eldar steal Imperial tanks? You know, but because you know what's the difference between an Eldar tank and an Imperial tank? An Eldar tank is fast and hits really hard, but is lightly armored as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Imperial tank is massively armored, but is slow as fuck. So why would someone who's specialized in hit-and-run tactics steal an Imperial battle tank?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they've got some way to make it go faster.
No, they don't. You can't make it faster. That's a piece of junk, basically. For the Eldar, it's a massive piece of junk. Yet, Godo had them steal them by the dozens and make monkey sounds on top of it.
Goodness.
And even then, he made the Eldar look as if they couldn't understand human language, when the Eldar were able to speak human language properly ever since their first meeting with mankind. Oh, how about this? The Godo took one of the Eldar protagonists, called Taldir, and when the time came, subjected her to 20 pages of torture by Ahriman and his 1,000 sons a chaos warband that managed to capture her and tortured her for the shits and giggles. 20 pages of graphic torture before he pulled her out of his misery. Well, out of her misery.
That's pretty wild.
When I saw that, I'm like, what? Dodo, you are one sick fuck, you know that? Like, I swear to God, I think he was getting off to it, you know? Either that or he hated Heldar a lot. But it's basically, it's really amazing. And you want to know what he said once when we criticized him? Well, when the community criticized him, he said this: "My form of canon is just as valid as anyone else's. Warhammer nerds need to get out of their mother's basements and do something with their life before they start criticizing others."
Yeah, that sounds pretty arrogant.
Let me tell you a thing, Godo. I'm doing something with my life, which is trying to get a fucking degree. How about you get a fucking degree first, and then you talk? And for example, another thing he has done, he made that the Eldar worship Slanesh, including the entire Ulfweir Council and Eldrad himself. Do you know what's the problem with that, Liv?
I don't know. I mean, I know the Eldar have always been into the chaos stuff, but I didn't think they were Slaneshi.
Slanesh murder-fucked 70% of the Eldar race when it was born.
Yeah, and isn't the thing about the... I guess it's the Daemonettes, don't they, like, feed on Eldar souls?
They do. So, let me tell ya, why the fuck would the Eldar worship the goddess itself that doomed them into a life of eternal pain and suffering the moment their souls entered the warp after death?
Yeah, it sounds like some continuity errors there.
Every single Eldar, even the crazy hedonistic ones like the Dark Eldar, loathe and revile what their ancestors did, because said thing reduced their large empire to a shadow of its former glory. Why the fuck would you even do that? Also, for example, anti-vehicle platforms of the Eldar can render Bane Blades on life support. Those that have energy shielding that can deflect multiple last cannon fire. This guy illustrated that an Eldar Graph tank could be brought down by feral world kits throwing stones into its engines, dragging the commander out when he pops the hatch, and sodomizing him with sticks. Oh, fucking hell. Fucking hell. I'm really sorry if I put so much into this tirade, Liv, but I thought you'd find it very funny to know about this guy.
Yeah, no, there's no problem. I mean, I'm always a little interested to hear more about 40k lore. I haven't played it myself, but like I said, my boyfriend is really into it. I mean, like, I think he went on for an hour and a half or longer about the Horus Heresy when I asked him about it.
Well, for instance, you told me you exclusively play role-playing games, right?
Well, no, I play some, say, what they call real-time strategy. So, like Stellaris, for example, I play that. I generally play role-playing games. Most of the time, they're MMORPGs. Of course, I have Nier Automata and Bayonetta. Those are games I've played. There is also the game Far Cry Primal, which I need to actually download onto this newer computer because it's so graphics intensive that my older computer really can't handle it. But I really only got that for the language. You know, they had developed a reconstructed dialect of Proto-Indo-European, and I'm very into historical linguistics. I've been studying Proto-Indo-European for a long fucking time, since the 80s.
Well, that's actually interesting to know. But let me tell you a thing. If you like real-time strategy games, the Dawn of War series is really good. If you're into that, if you want to know more about what kind of universe you're getting yourself into. The thing is, you cannot put the entire lore of 40K in one single game. You know what I mean? It's impossible because of the how you call it, because of the scope of it. The scope of the universe is just too massive in order to spend 1 hour talking about it. But if you're into real-time strategy games, you pick the Dawn of War series, every single game except the third one. The third one is so bad that you could skip it and you wouldn't miss anything. For example, every single Dawn of War game, you know how many races did it end up having? Well, it ended up having 8 races in the Soulstorm expansion. So imagine how many options you had there. Such a beautiful touch and such a good show of good gameplay, but admittedly, the multiplayer was broken as fuck. Because guess who ended up dominating the ranged battles in that game? The Tau. The fucking space communists ended up dominating that game. And the second game had less races, but it had more than 3 and better balanced. And 3 only had 3 races. You know how little that is in a scope of the universe like 40,000? Only 3 races slugging it out.
Yeah, that seems... What happened to the rest of them?
Well, they tried to offer some teaser about how the Necrons would be showing up in an expansion, but the expansion never happened. I don't know why, because the game didn't sell. And why didn't the game sell? Because the game tried to cater to the esports genre. Which means simplification, which means appealing to the lowest common denominator, which also means that for example, how do you picture yourself a battlefield in the 41st millennium? Dark, gritty, with the soldiers basically with their uniform and fucking mess, you know? The tanks were worn, that's filled with bullet holes, with signs that they've been in 100 battles. You imagine yourself such a setting in a grim dark future, right? Well, in the game, the tanks look like they've been recently cleaned up, and they look like plastic as a result of it.
Wow.
They look like plastic. When I see that, I'm like, what the fuck is this supposed to look like? Why does this look so clean? Why does this look like something out of StarCraft? Why does this look like out of scale?
Yeah. So, not to change the topic, but let's change the topic. You were going to talk about the EU and this new...
Oh.
Yeah.
That is quite embarrassing. Well, okay, about the EU... Well, what can I tell you about the fucking EU? What you don't already know at this point. The EU over here has been a fucking disaster, as I've told you in the beginning. Which every single country in every single Southern European country is starting to get the feeling that the whole union is only cover up to serve German interests.
Sounds like it has a German problem.
Yes, hello there, by the way.
Hey, my boyfriend has joined us with his silly name.
Love me some Flappyhats. But yeah, we were talking about a bit about 40K at the beginning, and then we were going to talk about the issues with the European Union, especially since Article 13 has passed, and it's going to go on the European Parliament on July 5.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So it's going to go before the Parliament.
It has to go to the Parliament, but the law isn't approved officially yet. You know what I mean? We still have the European Parliament in order to derail it.
Well, hopefully they will. I mean, it's kind of a stupid law.
The EU is a stupid organization.
The EU is a stupid mess. I mean, let me tell you, I used to be really on the whole thing of the European Union as something really good, but because hey, who doesn't love the idea of a United States of Europe? But in the end, it ended up being a club in which the southern countries ended up giving money to German interests. Where do you think the whole PIGS denomination came from? Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain. And because we were the sick countries of Europe. No, let me tell you, I find that Germany has managed to establish itself as the Fourth Reich, basically. In the end, I'm not even sure. I think this union is doomed to failure. And the sooner it fails, the better. Hell, what I would argue is for the southern countries to break away from the union and form their own economic union. And it needs to be economic, not political.
Yeah, that's what the EU was originally before it became the EU. The European Common Market was an economic confederation or whatever.
Yeah, all of us were doing whatever the fuck we wanted, but we had an economic union, and it was nice so far. Till we decided to experiment with this, and the experiment has been a fucking disaster. In the end, though, no, I gotta wonder what the fuck is going on in the United Kingdom because as far as I know, weren't they supposed to leave a while ago?
Well, they did vote to leave, but they have to go through a lot of shit before they can get out, and apparently they haven't developed a proper plan yet for exit. There's a lot of talk about what they're going to stick with and what they're going to get rid of, and you know, the Tories are notoriously incompetent and have been forever.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the representatives of the United Kingdom voted yes on the whole Article 13 issue. If there were any United Kingdom representatives left, you know.
And I know that Tony Blair was a member of the European Parliament, I guess, for a while, which was, yeah, that suits him pretty well, neoliberal fuck that he was. But why don't you tell us about Article 13, because some of the people out there might not know what it is.
Well, I've been trying to dig a bit into the specifics, but from what I can tell, I think Article 13 is basically a filter, an online filter. It's basically a filter in which it processes the material you post on the internet and sees if it's copyrighted material. If it's copyrighted material, bam, it's gone. What's the problem with it? What's the problem with it? You remember all of those Gang parodies? All of those downfall parodies with Hitler ranting about asinine stuff.
Yeah.
If Article 13 passes, I think all of those could be gone. Because technically, the downfall is copyrighted material.
Well, they need to do something similar to what has been done elsewhere. For example, in the United States, we have something called fair use, which allows the use of copyrighted works for certain purposes. You can only use a certain amount of the copyrighted work, and it has to be for, you can't be making a profit off of it. It has to be something that's provided for free to anyone who wants to see it. So, like, for example, I have some stuff in my videos and sometimes in my streams that is fair use, but nobody has to pay to watch my videos. And I mean, it's okay for me to accept donations through Patreon, but I couldn't ever go to, like, say, YouTube Red, where you have to subscribe and pay a fee to watch my content, because that would remove my ability to do fair use. But basically, if you're doing it for entertainment, education, and or parody or something like that, it's considered to be fair use. Again, though, you can only use a certain, like if you were taking someone's written work, you could only use a certain amount of it. Like, I think it's like under 20%. I forget now. But like with memes, who the fuck owns a meme, right? I mean, memes just proliferate across the internet. Nobody knows where they came from. They expand significantly. People change the wording. They take the original image and put new words on it. All kinds of weird stuff. So there's no real provenance that can be traced on a meme.
That's about it. That's the thing that really drives me mad in the end, because in the end, who the fuck owns a meme anyways? You don't own a meme. In fact, you don't own the internet as a whole. No one does. But in the end, I am starting to feel powerless. That's the thing that really starts to wear me down and kind of gets me depressed in the end. Because no matter what we do, what's the point? You know what I mean? The European Commission is not going to give a fuck.
Well, that's the American, that's the United States experience for the past 40 years or more. You can write to your representative or senator, and you get a form letter back saying basically, thanks for your opinion, but I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want, whatever my party tells me to, whatever my wealthy donors tell me to. I don't care about you. I don't represent you. You know, that kind of shit. So you get this kind of canned response that basically says, thanks for telling me what you think, I don't give a fuck.
Well, I'm starting to feel quite depressed about this. Well, depressed and outraged. Because I couldn't believe in a moment where crimes against the honor of a person would be a thing again. And apparently, here in Spain, the former administration tried to make that into a law. Crimes against the honor of a person. Meaning that any single slight against the honor of a person could be punishable by jail here.
Well, maybe you should lobby for dueling to be reinstated.
Yeah, I mean, I should argue for that. If imprisonment for honor is going to be a thing, then I might as well lobbying for dueling to be a thing again. But in the end, well, what the fuck can you do? If Spain is fucking different, for better and for worse. Lately, going for the worst too.
You know, Italy has been talking about leaving the EU for quite a while, even before this 5-star movement came around and the League of the North and shit like that. There was quite a lot of talk about leaving the EU. There are some socialists in Greece who have wanted to leave the EU, but their president was like, nope, you know.
The whole thing with Greece, I don't even understand it, because he was screaming all the time about the leave the EU, and once he got into power, he dropped his pants, basically.
Yep.
Fucking hell. Fucking hell. The Greek socialists just committed suicide that way.
We had a minister of finance or something like that who rebelled and resigned because the guy was like, no, we're not going to leave. And he was like, but the people want us to. And he's like, too bad, so sad.
And the social democracy here is, I dare to say that it has been a fucking failure in at least the social democratic movements. Because we've seen them, all of them turn their heads down and suck the big dicks of their corporate overlords. It's starting to make me feel as if the whole system itself is rotten to the very core. And I think the European Union is rotten to the very core. It is basically a cesspit. Even Nurgle itself wouldn't touch it. And when something is so bad, you know what it deserves to have. What fate does it deserve to have? It deserves to burn.
Well, you have a body of unelected bureaucrats who are the only ones who can propose new legislation, and people still claim that it's a democratic polity, and I'm like, no, how can it be democratic when the only people who can propose new legislation are unelected? Well, they're appointed by the heads of state who are elected. Yeah, but they're not elected. Well, the European Parliament votes on the legislation. Yeah, but they can't propose any legislation of their own. They have only to vote on the legislation that's handed down from above.
It's really sad because when I start to read about the past, Europe used to be it was never an example of freedom. Europe, you know what I mean? It was never an example of freedom, justice, or whatever it's called. But it was the home of the Renaissance, the illustration, the love for science. And now I'm seeing all this being swept away in a wave of self-righteousness and outrage mongering.
Yeah.
I'm seeing with my own very eyes the collapse of the base of illustration, of the illustration movement. And I kind of am starting to feel like I'm living in some sort of Kafkaesque dimension. It's feeling embarrassing for me to talk about it at this point. For example, in our university, we've had several female talks. Female. How do you call them? What do you call female meetings? Yeah, meetings about the history of discrimination, history of and on the subtitle it says non-mixed meetings.
Oh, so women only, huh?
Yep. When I saw that, my face my jaw ended up dropping on the ground, filled with a bit of vitriolic hate growing and saying, you have the least amount of self-awareness I have ever seen in my entire life. You have less self-awareness than Anita Sarkeesian.
There was an article published in Penthouse today or yesterday, I guess, called Toxic Femininity, which I haven't read all of yet. It's kind of long, but it looks very interesting from what I have looked at of it.
Toxic femininity, huh? What else is new? I'm kind of used to it. In fact, you know what one of the things happened in my university? The door of our class had some sort of painting which said "Stop heteros." with some sort of queer symbol on it, I think.
But how is the species going to survive without heterosexuals?
No. Maybe they're going to argue that the artificial insemination is going to be a thing.
We'll grow ourselves in test tubes.
Yep. You're gonna say it's a joke. You're gonna say it as a joke way, but maybe they're gonna say it in a very serious way. You know.
That might actually happen.
To be honest, I don't even know what's gonna happen, but I personally want all of this to blow over already. You know what I mean? And I'm not even sure if it's ever gonna blow over.
I did link that article into one of the Discords you're in. I'm pretty sure that it is in the Tablinum? Yeah, of the Res Publica server. So if you want to look at it, it's there. I got it off Twitter. I think the person who wrote it is the person who posted it to Twitter. So if you want to look at it, there's a link there.
Oh well, which Discord was it? Oh, Res Publica. Okay. I really ought to see. Give me get Res Publica. Here it is. Also, free speech also does not mean throw leftists out of helicopters for exercising their own free speech because I don't like it. Okay, you really have everything straight in that regard.
Yeah, I've said that. Which led to the foundation of this server. There were a lot of people in there that were, at first they were doing what they claimed was Nazi role-playing, so we, who were moderators, and the owner jumped on them and said, no more of this shit. I mean, because it was all they were fucking doing, it's like, if you're gonna do it once in a while, if you're gonna post some meme like, Hans get the gas, okay, so maybe that's a joke or whatever, but yeah, so when we got onto them about that, they left, they stopped doing that, and they started posting Pinochet memes and talking about how they were going to throw leftists out of helicopters and shit like that, but, they claim that we're coming down on them and oppressing their free speech, and, it's not. If you say you're going to throw leftists out of helicopters for exercising their free speech because I don't like it, that's not free speech, it's anti-free speech. So, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. In the end, though, let me tell you that both of the, how do you call it? Both extremes end up touching each other in the end. Be it right, left, or anything. Oh, fuck. Yeah, it's amazing that how you...
It's the thing about fanaticism. You can be an extreme leftist or an extreme right-winger without being a fanatic. It may be somewhat difficult, but it is possible. So, it's the fanaticism that gets, and that's what they have in common. The fanaticism tends towards authoritarianism. It's extremely intolerant towards even the slightest dissent from whatever they view as orthodoxy. It will resort to violent tactics in order to enforce orthodoxy after it starts off with shaming and ostracizing people for deviating from the norm or what they have established as their new norm.
Yeah, at this point, well, fucking hell. Also, checking on your thing, here's something that made me laugh. Years after World War I and World War II, everyone still hates the Germans. Yep, sounds about right. It was something from Lucy Cypher, which she posted about a group of Mexicans celebrating with the Korean ambassador the defeat of Germany.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. The thing is, Kraut and T did a video. I guess it's been over 2 years ago now, talking about German guild. I know I've got a copy of that video somewhere here. Let me see if I can find out what the title of it is, because it was a pretty interesting video, and it was done also as a guest video for Sargon of Akkad's channel. So I mean, I'm sure you can find it there if it's not still available on his own channel. I know he did make most of his videos private. I don't see it here. I know I've got it. Shit, where is it?
Well, you're looking for that. What else? That's fine over here. Don't call me really. So, yeah, I see you posted here something from Jean-Luc Picard himself, quoting Judge Sharon Sadie. When the first link, the chain is forged. The first speech censored. The first truth thought forbidden. The first freedom denied. Changed us all irrevocably. I didn't know Picard said that. Or quoted, was quoted to Picard.
Here we go. I found there are a couple of videos that were I think it's called The German Question. It's either a live stream with Kraut, or it's a guest video on Sargon's channel. And there's another one called The Consequences of German Guilt. Let me see here. I think The Consequences of German Guilt may be the one I'm thinking about, which was the guest video he did. And The German Question may be one that was like a live stream or something. You have a look real quick and see.
No, with the whole thing, now you mentioned German Guild, there's a bit of a thing you could notice over there. The biggest concentration of the neo-Nazis in Germany, you know where they come from? They come from East Germany. Also, now I noticed over here, listen, I'd love to talk more, but I gotta catch some sleep over here. So.
I find the idea that our society should be set up in a way that makes moral judgments.
I think it's called The Consequences of German Guilt. And it's from 2016 in June. June the 3rd, 2016. And there was another one called The German Question, July the 25th, 2016. Those should both be on Sargon's channel if they're not available on Kraut's channel. I know that Kraut did make some of his videos public again, but I'm not sure if either of those were made public. But they were very interesting videos, and I got into a discussion with someone about it on Sargon's Google Plus account a couple of years ago. This guy from Serbia, I guess, who was bound and determined that Germans were an evil race and they needed to suffer. And I'm like, dude, if there's anybody still alive who was part of, the Nazis in World War II, they'd be in their 80s or 90s now. What are you going to do to all these other people that are younger than that had absolutely fuck all to do with all that shit,
Oh, fucking hell. Well, I can understand the whole thing. The whole German guilt issue was a fucking fuckfest since the Nuremberg trials.
Oh, it goes back to the Treaty of Versailles, where they tried to blame the Germans for World War II, and it was all started because of the Bosnian and Serbian Black Hand terrorist organization, which was backed by the Russian Empire in the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Yep, and look where we are now. World War I certainly changed a lot of more stuff than too, that's for sure.
Yep.
Fucking no, what a disaster. Then again, I've heard from some word that the whole guilt on Germany thing was because the United States was trying to recover the war debts that the Allies incurred with it. You know what I mean? That initially there were no plans to force Germany into some sort of collective guilt and into forcing them to pay war reparations, but the debts that the Entente had with the United States were so massive that they had to get money from somewhere, and it had to be from the German Empire, well, or for the defunct German Empire.
Yeah, and then through the 1920s, as in the early 30s, late 20s, after the Great Depression hit and affected the entire world, what happened with German currency? You could take a barrel full of 500,000 Deutsche Mark down to the store to buy a bag of bread, really. That's how bad it was.
Yep. That was a fucking shit show that everyone mishandled, and it allowed the right kind of, well, the quotations, right kind of people to get into power.
Yeah, see, the thing is, Herbert Hoover was advised by progressive Republicans what he could do to get out of the Depression, or, at least mitigate it, make it somewhat less harsh than it was, and he ignored them and went further right, which is exactly the opposite from the direction he should have gone in. And we finally got FDR in office, and he started the recovery with the New Deal, putting people back to work, building up the national infrastructure, the Civilian Conservation Corps. There are places around here which still survive that were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. We had Works Progress Administration and stuff like that, where people were building highways and bridges and things like that to improve the national infrastructure. And all of that was good, but it wasn't enough to get us out of the Depression. We didn't get out of the Depression until we got into World War II, because that kicked the military-industrial complex into overdrive, and suddenly the economy started improving. But that won't work anymore, because the neoconservatives have this idea that all we need to get out of an economic recession or depression is a war, because that will do the same thing that it did in World War II. But all those neoconservatives on foreign policy are also neoliberals on economic policy, and that means they've encouraged all those factories to move out of the country to third world countries, where they, turn them into sweatshops and pay their workers, 15 cents a day and work them for 12 hours or more a day in unsafe working conditions, where the employer doesn't have to worry about workers' compensation for injuries on a job, doesn't have to worry about an 8-hour work day or a 40-hour work week or overtime or minimum wage, or even, regulations against polluting the soil and the water and the air, so they don't have those costs to concern themselves. But that also means all those factories are no longer here for people to go back to work. So going back to war isn't going to pull us out of anything. It's just going to make the situation worse and send a bunch of people off to kill or be killed.
Yeah, sounds about right. Same argument, different shit. Listen, now I really gotta go. No.
Okay. All right. Well, dream well.
Thank you, and I'll see you next week if so.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and see you guys later.
Well, Lord Flappyhat, what would you like to talk about?
I don't know. I got nothing to talk about.
You always have something to talk about.
No, not really.
Why don't you tell me about the SUV drivers this evening as you were coming home?
Fucking SUV drivers. Just because you spend too much on a goddamn vehicle and too much on gas doesn't mean you get to take up the whole fucking road. Ain't my fault you're born stupid.
They have blind spots in those vehicles where they can't see as well. And oh, you know what? One of those things, an SUV or a pickup gets behind me at night with their lights shining right in my mirror, and I'm like, oh man, I want to put a deployable mirror in my rear bumper so I can, deploy it and shine their lights right back in their faces.
It's even better when they're the type of driver that guns the engine, and then it hits the brakes, and they gun the engine again, and they hit the brakes. So it's like, okay, I can't tell if you're hitting the brakes because you're gunning the engine, or you're hitting the brakes because traffic is slowing down. Because you're blocking my fucking view.
Yeah.
Same goes with truck drivers. Sorry you're trying to compensate for something, but it ain't my fault. Your problem's with God.
Oh my goodness. Well, let me see. So I was gonna maybe talk a little bit about news from today, because I did have a little bit of stuff I gathered up. So Amazon has purchased an online pharmacy. They already have Whole Foods, or whatever it's called, of course. So they're becoming even more of a megacorp. Susan Sarandon was arrested with other women disobey protesters in Washington, D.C. while calling for an end to the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy at the United States-Mexico border. Generation Identity, a white identitarian hate group, has been banned from Facebook. Let's see what else we got here.
You sound like a bunch of social justice warriors. That's immediately what came up to my head.
That guy that's retiring from the Supreme Court, the Koch brothers are ready to spend millions to try to get one of their objectivist types in as a Supreme Court justice. Of course, the Democrats, the partisan Democrats and the Hillbots are out in force on Twitter, screeching about Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders again, because they can't accept any responsibility for their own behavior in 2016, which encouraged so many of us to not vote for that woman.
I'd argue since forever.
Yeah.
When Al Gore lost, and they were blaming who's the Green Party
Ralph
candidate?
Nader.
Yep, they were blaming Ralph Nader for the loss. They got lucky with Obama. They got lucky that Bush was such a crappy president. They took the House back. They took the House of Reps and Senate back for 2 years.
Yes, and during that 2-year period when the Democrats were in charge of both houses of Congress and had a president, they couldn't give us Medicare for all. Instead, they gave us a version of Romney Care, which was a tremendous gift to the private for-profit insurance companies. Let's see, there's something about one of the literally who type people. Apparently, she violated DC Comics' social media guidelines by calling Republicans evil. The Hispanic Caucus has welcomed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with open arms, but maybe not her entire platform. Harlan Ellison has passed away, the author, Harlan Ellison. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't really see anything off the top of my head that... let me have a look over here. Now, I think that... Oh, wait, here's Lord Blastington wants to come in and join us. We'll bring him in. Hello, Ryan.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing okay. I was on another stream. A guy named Dark Conservatorian.
I'm not familiar with him.
Oh, he's actually a smaller channel. He's a right-leaning libertarian, and of course, he also had bearing on the stream as well.
Oh, Bering, huh?
Yeah, he had bearing on the stream. Like,
So what were you all talking about?
it's actually mostly like shooting the shit and all, like. Just a hangout, mostly a hangout stream. Like, we did actually talk about a few things, like about Medicare, like towards the end, like talk about the healthcare system, as well as also earlier about like some like movies, and it's just mostly like just a hangout stream. Mostly
I see. Well, we talked a little bit earlier in here about Gundam and Warhammer 40K. We talked a little bit about the European Union, and then
Elon was right.
who was then so we then after Union Aerospace left, I got my Boo Bear there to tell me about his trip home from work with the SUVs being stupid, or the SUV drivers being stupid, and then I started kind of giving some headlines from news of the day. But what's on your mind?
not much. Like I guess like maybe for the past week I played the news. I tried the new Star Trek Online mission, and of course, yesterday I got refilled my heart medication. It only cost me $4.70, as in $4.70.
Is that a good price? I don't know. What are you taking? Digitalis or what?
Oh, it's Ramafil. Like it's heart medication. It's 100 caplets I got, so it's a good price.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and also like I'm going to be like editing like some of my like Victor's Life Let's Plays as well before uploading it on YouTube. Like, yeah, like I guess how's your day?
Well, my day has been okay. I wound up sleeping most of the day off and on. I finally got my new air conditioner, arrived on Wednesday, and I managed to get it in the house off the porch, and with great effort I managed to get it to the bedroom, and then I just stopped at that point. So then yesterday I managed to drag it across the end of the bed because there was no way I was going to be able to carry it over to the window. So I just got it up on the bed and slid it across the end of the bed, and then got it back down on the floor, and it has rollers on it, or coasters, or whatever you want to call them. So I got it over close to the window and hooked up the vent hose to it so that it can vent itself out the window, and plugged it in and turned it on, and finally I have not been perspiring extremely for the past day now, and I even had to turn it down a little bit last night. It got so chilly in here, which was nice because it's been rather unbearable here since my other air conditioner blew out, or whatever it did. So yeah, I'm feeling a lot better than I have in a while.
Yeah, like from right here, like it gets very hot down there. It's probably good you have your aircon. Like,
well, yeah, I was not looking forward to late July and early August. We've had last year, I think we had 119 degrees one day, which was insane. I mean, the highest I can remember it being before that was 117, and that was relatively recently. But yeah, it used to not get this hot here, of course. We used to have temperatures that would get up to maybe 106 or 107. I think I remember one time when I was in high school it was 109, and that was just insane. No one had ever heard of that before. but now we're getting temperatures over 10 degrees higher than that. So yeah, it's and May, you know, you wouldn't expect it to be quite so unbearable in May, but it certainly was. And June was getting even hotter, and so I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna have to get a new air conditioner, but I'm a small woman and I can't pick up very heavy stuff, and most of the, you know, the window unit type air conditioners are over 100 pounds at least. I went to Lowe's, and they said that their lightest air conditioner is 75 pounds, and I'm like, well, there's no way I can't do that. So I had to resort to a certain online outlet, which I will not name here, but you all know Jeff Bezos, I'm sure. And so I had to get a Whirlpool portable air conditioner from there. I found one that was under 50 pounds, and I said, well, I can probably pick that up. And yes, I can, but moving it from the front porch all the way in here was a little too much for me. I was extremely sore yesterday. I also had tried to chop down a tree outside the window with a hand axe, which was probably not the best idea in the world. My entire right arm felt like jelly by last night, but it doesn't hurt anymore, thank goodness. I didn't quite get it chopped down. I was going to go back out there yesterday and finish it, and I felt like hell, so I didn't. So, I mean, I'll dig around and see if I can find one of my dad's saws, which should finish the job. But I don't think I want to try the hand axe again.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I need to be right back for one quick second.
Okay.
Be right back,
So then, we have two lords in the chat with us here, Lord Flappyhat and Lord Blastington. Let me go ahead and put your names upon the who's here stuff. Let me see here. Where's my frickin' pointer? There it is. Okay. So that should, yeah, okay, we got that there then. And so I don't know what else is going on in the world today. Of course, we had the news, I guess, yesterday, that Ocasio-Cortez had won in New York, her primary. So she's got to go to the general election in November, and we'll see what happens. She is a Democrat, but a Democratic Socialists of America member. And I'm not really sure where she stands on some of that, because I've seen several different things about what the DSA stands for. Some of them sound more like Marxism than Democratic Socialism. But looking at her own statements, it looks like she might actually be a Democratic Socialist and not a Marxist, which would be good, right? Let's see what else is going on here.
Came back.
Welcome back. Let's see, there was also, we found out about Starbucks has offered expanded benefits for trans people. I think that news came out yesterday. So they will be covering what is known as gender-confirming surgery for their trans employees. Also, it looks like they're going to be covering breast enhancement, facial hair removal, breast reduction for trans men, things of that nature. Of course, the usual suspects have been outraged about that. We also found out that the historic Route 66 has been put on a list of 11 endangered historic places in the United States. which is very disturbing. I have traveled historic Route 66 a few times, and it's quite nice. So I hope something is done to keep that. You know, I mean, it's not all there anymore. Some of it is now I-40 or I-20 or I-40. I-20? I don't remember which one it is. One of those. The one that goes through the northern part of the, the high desert out there in New Mexico and Arizona and into California. But there are parts of the original Route 66 which are still there, and you can still drive on them. Which I've done a few times, which, yeah, it's kind of fun. A lot of the old historic businesses, restaurants and so forth are still there. The bill to save net neutrality, which passed in the U.S. Senate, is 46 votes short in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is not good news, of course. We also found out that San Francisco restaurants claim they can't afford to pay their waiters, so they're going to start putting their diners to work and placing their own orders. I guess that's going to work something like the little kiosks that McDonald's and places like that have put in, which I refuse to use when I go to McDonald's. I always go up to the cashier or whatever.
Please. Most waiters and waitresses make their money from tips.
Yeah, but you're not going to make that at McDonald's, right? They don't tip you there.
Nope. But they're saying restaurants, not shitty fast food places.
Yeah, actually, like some fast food places do have a tip cup, which I'm presuming that they'll just simply equally divide among the workers.
Yeah, there are some places around here which are restaurants which divide the tips up among their serving staff, and I don't like that because if I give a tip to someone, it's because of their service. And I always leave at least $1, but if I get exceptionally good service and someone paying attention to me, I like to give them a little more. So, and it's for that one person who gave me good service. It's not for whoever else happens to be working there at the time with them. So I'm not too keen on that. Then there's also a policy at some restaurants where the restaurant takes all the tips and the serving staff get none of it anyway. But the Sonic people, when they come out to the car, what do they call them? Bellhops or something like that. I forget now. I always give them a tip too. Never seen anyone do that at McDonald's or Burger King or a place like that. Of course, if you have a pizza delivery driver, you will give them tip. I always did that, and when I was working at a pizzeria, I always got tipped, so that was fun.
Well, actually, I've seen a few Dairy Queens with tip cups.
Really?
Yeah, actually, I believe I remember seeing a few Dairy Queens, and also there's some places in in mall food courts that have a tip cup.
Huh.
Yeah, usually my tipping rule is usually around 10%.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. Lunch is usually a little bit less expensive, and $1 is more than 10%. I know they say they want 15 to 20% is supposedly the standard tip, but I only do that whenever I'm getting really good service and stuff. So I usually just leave 10% or $1, whichever is greater.
Actually, I remember I think I have to remember. I think it was last year or the year before, but Ben Shapiro said something about tipping, he doesn't believe in tipping or something.
Well, that really wouldn't surprise me about Ben Shapiro.
I think Netscape did a video about that. Though, the thing is, about tipping is that it's actually a voluntary contract, meaning how can you actually enforce it? Like, if you want to like do a ban on tipping, like how to actually enforce it? Like,
yeah, there are some restaurants which include the tip in your check. So I mean, there are some places where it's not voluntary. It's part of what you pay when you go up to the cashier, or hand them your credit card or whatever.
yeah, like I guess I can understand that because like I think tipping should be a completely voluntary thing. Like,
I agree. It should be voluntary. I always leave actual cash for the waiter or waitress, because sometimes when you do it with a credit card, they don't actually get the money that way either. The restaurant takes that.
yeah,
So what have you been doing lately besides playing Star Trek Online and such?
I've been working and like see actually at the I conscious at this building, and of course the past week there was like another flood, and also have to like deal with rumor control because of drama involving like parking. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in my work. So,
Did you say a flood?
well, more like a leak, but it was like actually is an interesting story. Is that it was it was actually Sunday night. It was sometime after I got off duty, but the concierge working there actually had to deal with a leak from one of the floors, which went down to the gym and all the way down to the lobby. The thing is, like, it's actually like a few months earlier, while I was on duty, I had to deal with something similar, and not only that, but it actually was from the exact same unit.
Huh. So it wasn't really fixed then.
Yes, and of course, like we presume it was actually a cloud drain. But then I kind of remembered something like that Sunday night, like last Sunday night, it was raining heavily, and also it was raining heavily on that time a few months ago when that first leak sprung, which got me thinking it might have something to do with maybe the design of the building that somehow collects rainwater or something.
Yeah, especially it can happen with the type of roof the building has on it. That's why a lot of places prefer pitched roofs instead of flat roofs. Flat roofs tend to leak more readily than a pitched roof will.
Yeah, but that's actually kind of like a little odd because like this wasn't on the top floor. It was actually the third floor, and the building I work at has 18 floors. So make you think like no one above those floors have any complaints during that night.
Wow, that's weird.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder, like, could be like water like going in like maybe through like maybe some kind of like dysfunctional gutter system or something, or
I guess it could be leaking from the roof down through the spaces in between the walls.
could be. You're a little kitty?
Yeah, the mama kitty has decided she wants some loving, and I'm like, no, I'm streaming right now. You can't be messing with me because I have to use this hand to turn my mic on and off. I do have some earbuds on the way. They should be here by next stream. I finally decided that since I was never going to remember when I actually get out of here and go to a store, because I've been to a store several times since I realized I needed to either buy some new ones or get serious about finding my others, which are new. I mean, I've used them like 3 times maybe, and I don't know where they are. I thought I had them in the little backpack I use to carry my laptop around with me when I go places with it, but apparently not. So I've looked everywhere I thought they might be, and I haven't been able to find them. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just buy some, something instead of a full headset, just some earbuds. And every time I go to the store, it's never on my mind. I'm thinking about buying Pepsi, and snacks and food and stuff like that, cheeses. I use a lot of cheese in my cooking, various kinds of cheese. At any given moment, I will have 11 different kinds of cheese in the refrigerator. So, I use a lot of cheese. I cook a lot of Italian food, and there's a lot of cheese in Italian food. So, anyway, I don't really think about it when I go to the store. So I finally decided that I would just order some off the internet, and I found a pair that are violet in color, and I was like, well, that's just right up my alley because violet is one of my colors. So I ordered them, and they're supposed to be here either next Thursday or next Friday. So they should be here in time for the next stream, but I have them coming to my P.O. box, which means I have to go in to town to pick them up. So I will have to remember to go into town next Friday, if not before, and see if I can get them at that time. I also recently ordered a book called What Would Captain Kirk Do? I haven't read it yet, but I thought it was kind of cool. So I decided to buy that, and it's here. It came the same day my air conditioner did, so that was pretty cool.
Nice. Like, what would Captain Kirk do? Like,
yeah, it's just advice from based on the original series and how Captain Kirk conducted himself and so forth. Like I said, I haven't read it yet. I've looked through a little bit, looked at the pictures, right, and I read like the first several pages, and I was like, yep, this is going to be good, but I will have to do it later because I've got other things I need to do, like get this air conditioner in place and hooked up and turned on so I don't melt,
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, like, what will Captain Kirk do? That kind of sounds like something that could lead into, like, a Star Trek V style movie, like... Yeah, like where Captain Kirk faces off against God, like that sort of thing. Like,
yeah. Why does a god need a starship, right?
Yeah, that one. Like I'm thinking, like, like when I heard like what would Captain Kirk would do, like that's the first thing that came to my head. Star Trek V.
Well, I was thinking of. I've never trusted Klingons, and I never will. And Lord Flappyhat told me what he thought Captain Kirk would do. Didn't you, baby?
Oh, it's obvious.
Well, I guess like maybe how Captain Kirk would deal with the Dominion War would be would involve him trying to romance the female changeling. Like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, like just thinking like that's how probably would win the Dominion War. Like,
I would hope that he has better
and
taste.
succeed too.
I would hope that he has better taste than the female changeling, but like Loris, maybe.
maybe like I'm just saying, like, of course, like Loris is actually technically a character that did appear in DS9 that was actually originally created by Cryptic, but yeah, but I'm thinking about like actually like if Captain Kirk was somehow like brought into like the DS9 era and had to like fight the Dominion War, how would he win it? It'll probably involve like romancing someone.
Romancing a female prophet.
Yeah, actually, I think seeing like the prophets do take the form of people you're familiar with. Like they could look like any of the girls that Kirk had a relationship with. Like,
there you go.
speaking about Kirk's escapades, like actually, you all remember Into Darkness, like.
Is that the one with the
I'm
female
trying
Orion?
not to.
Oh, the Star Trek Into Darkness, where where they have like Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan, that one, like.
Oh, the Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan.
Yeah, Into Darkness, but there's actually a scene where Kirk was actually in bed with two girls with tails, and like these are just look like regular girls, but they have tails, and of course, like there's something. Of course, like I said, well, what aliens are those? And then I looked up on I think it was Memory Alpha and said they were Caitians, and I'd say like if that's the case, then that's probably the most latest thing they ever did, because without any excuse, because they should have like a higher makeup budget as well as having CG available. So why make Caitians that look like girls with tails instead of actual cat people? Like,
I don't know. That
obviously
maybe
someone working on the movie had a cat girl fetish.
that could be it.
I know, but I'm talking about like these don't look like sort of like what the Caitians look like in the TAS or Snow, but they just look like girls, but with tails. Like they just look like regular girls, but with furry tails. Like they're like the rest of them not furry at all. Like,
Yeah, I think the Maress from the animated series is under some kind of copyright issue that people can't use it without getting the guy or whoever it was that created the character to sign off on it, and so far that person has not been willing to do so.
but I'm thinking like, see, the Caitians and Stowe, they may not have the epic like Merez hair, but they still look like they still look like anthropomorphized cats. Not just regular people, but with tails, like.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, like with Into Darkness, they have a higher makeup budget than the original series, as well as CGI being available to them. So, what excuse they have not to make a Caitian that looks like perfectly like an anthropomorphized cat? Like, what excuse they really have? Like,
well, they redesigned the Klingons too. Remember?
I know, like they redesigned the Klingons like several times, like. But yeah, like I think like the first time, like I think someone actually claimed that originally the Klingons meant to have ridges, but because of the makeup constraints, make budget, they didn't in the original series. So, but I'm just saying, like I'm talking about like during the time when Into Darkness was in production, like they really have no excuse on making like an alien that looks exactly like what they envision it to be. Like, really, there's really no excuse now. Like,
I'm going to go with the cop-out. It is a cousin race to the Cetaceans.
I don't know, but I do know that I like the original series Klingons better than the ones with the lobsters on their foreheads.
You mean the ridges ones? Like,
yeah, I like the original series Klingons, and I like the original series Romulans with no V ridge. Oh my god, that's such a horrible thing. Even the guy that came up with that said that it was a mistake, and people are still doing it. I'm like, oh my god, stop. Just fucking stop. Give them flat foreheads again. They're supposed to be indistinguishable from Vulcans.
yeah, I think like that's probably the reason why they give them like the ridge, is because they wanted to make them distinguishable from Vulcans. Like they actually being on a different planet for like so many generations that they actually developed a few distinct features.
It's only been a couple of thousand years. They can't have evolved that much difference. And seriously, it just makes them look sullen all the time. I would say what I think it really makes them look like, but I'd probably get kicked off YouTube for it.
Yeah, like, but actually, the thing about evolution is that there's really no actual rate of it. Like genetic mutations could actually come very rapidly or take a longer period of time. So that could be like one explanation. And
well, mutants generally are infertile, so they wouldn't be able to perpetuate their species.
actually, no, I'm talking about like mutation in the term of the mechanics of evolution. That there could be like a change, like some kind of like mutation in the gene that if it provides like some kind of benefit that will increase the chance of the individual to breed and spread the genes around. Like that's what I'm referring to mutation as. Like
I prefer the theory that the V ridge on the Romulans in the Next Generation and later is due to ritual scarification. That it was something done by a particular sect of religion in among the Romulans. It seems to make more sense because there are still Romulans who don't have those ridges, and we could say they're just members of a different religious sect or whatever. And these ones who have the V ridges have engaged in the practice of ritual scarification to give themselves those ridges.
now that you mention it, like it is established that Romulans do like they remind me like when since Star Trek 09 started, like they revealed like some kind of Romulan tradition about a great that they ink their skin to after like a great tragedy has happened. Like that's why you see some Romulans in Star Trek Online with tattoos.
Right. And according to that story, Nero and his guys, his crew, had tattooed those markings permanently because they never wanted to stop mourning the loss of, the people that they had known and loved. That was not actually in the film, but it was in one of the Prelude comic books. That was,
yes.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I mean, certainly we do know that the Romulans have some kind of religious belief system, and it's been talked about in soft canon, in some of the novels and such. There's also the Last Unicorn Games version of a Star Trek role-playing game where they talk about the way of Dara, or the children of Ket Cheleb, who are the followers of Tellus, the warlord, and they worship the old Vulcan god of war, Ket Cheleb, and his consort, Dara. Then there's reference in some of the novels to the Mother's Weavers. It tells us nothing about them whatsoever, but the idea that has developed by fans over time since that came out is that they are worshiping the old original mother goddess of the old Vulcan gods. And then there is, from the FASA Star Trek role-playing game, there was the stuff about the way of the Great Brothers, which were the preservers. So there was that. And of course we know from some of the other novels that there were followers of Surak who went with the original people who left Vulcan and went on to become the first Romulans and Remans. So there was Surakianism or Cathia among them as well. The elementalism comes from Diane Duane's novels, the Rihansu Saga or the Bloodwing Saga, whichever you want to call it. And let's see, what else is there? There are a couple of other things I vaguely remember. I've done if you look at our Fleet Forum site, you'll see in the cultural info, I've done an entire rather lengthy post about Romulan thought, the first part of which is divided into religions and sacred traditions, and the second part is divided into philosophy. So, I mean, I kind of took what was available and ran with it and kind of developed it on my own terms. As a person who has a bachelor's degree in philosophy and religion and did my graduate work in theology, I do have some background from which to work. I've studied various religions since I was like 13 years old. And going back even further, if you want to talk about studies of Teutonic Norse and Greco-Roman myth, probably was 9 or 10 years old. No, 10 or 11, I guess, probably, when I started studying that stuff. But yeah, when I was like 13, I started studying Hinduism and Neo-Paganism and Rosicrucianism and Buddhism, and, well, you just name it, and I've probably studied it, sometimes in rather great detail. I started practicing Hatha Yoga when I was 12, and continued to do that for a very long time, actually. So I do have a little bit of knowledge of religions and sacred traditions from which to work. And of course, I had the information from FASA and Last Unicorn Games and Diane Duane's novels to work with as well.
Mm.
But my theory is that the children of Ketcheleb, the followers of Tellus, who worship the war god of the old Vulcan pantheon, are the ones who engage in ritual scarification, which would be kind of consistent with a warrior religion, right? They want to prove how butch and manly they are.
That's actually like reminds me of something like. See, like when I was on the Doc Conservatorian's stream, like the subject about like movies came out, and you heard about this guy named No Bullshit. Like, you know, he's kind of like a little. He's not that smart, but he does say like everything is SJW, including every little movie he doesn't like. Like,
Yeah, I've heard of that guy.
yeah, like anyhow, like see, like he did one like for Avengers Infinity War, and he actually claims that there's some kind of like feminism agenda because they demasculate what he considered to be the most manliest masculine character in the movie, which is the Hulk. Like, see, like because the Hulk refused to change, meaning that somehow they kind of like they kind of demasculify the Hulk because the Hulk won't come out. But that got me thinking, like, so is No Bullshit saying that his idea of manliness is a uncontrollable rage monster? You're thinking, like, isn't that kind of like is he just kind of like confirming the whole like idea of toxic masculinity of feminists spouting that? Isn't he just simply like just helping them make the case if he says that the Hulk is the example of masculinity?
Well, you know, Bruce Banner, throughout the comic history, going back to the 60s and coming forward, always wanted to be free of the Hulk, and there was even a period of time where Bruce Banner was Bruce Banner and the Hulk was separated from him in a different person, right? So, but eventually they merged back together. I don't remember exactly when that storyline came out. I think it was late 70s or early 80s, but I do remember it. So yeah, I would say it's not some kind of new thing that neo-feminists came up with, but it harkens back to the earliest beginnings of the character in the 60s. I guess the Hulk origin was in about 1963 or so. That seems to have been about the time most of the Silver Age characters came into existence. I know Doctor Strange and Spider-Man were both came into existence in 63. Nick Fury, of course, had been around since the 40s because he was originally one of the war comics that what became Marvel had put out. That was Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, and they were a commando unit in World War II. And that comic was still published into the 1970s, but it was always set in the, in the period of World War II. They started putting Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. out in 1963 as well. I think 1963 is when well, not all, obviously, but most of the characters that we all know who have survived and gone into the Marvel Universe movies, I think they all came around in 1963 or shortly after.
Yeah, but anyhow, but the main point is that, see, the rest of us kind of all agree that the most mindless character is either Captain America or Hulk in the MCU, but I'm kind of bringing back up the point, saying okay, the idea of this guy's idea that the Hulk is supposed to be the best representation of manliness in the MCU, which I just kind of find his logic kind of so bizarre, But yeah, but actually, when I mentioned, I think the Hulk and Banner was separated for a few times, anyhow, I kind of got off track here, excuse me, Hey, have anyone seen the new Jurassic World yet?
I have not.
No, but I did buy the game.
Wait, what do you think of it?
I like it. I do wish there was a little make time go faster button, though.
Yeah, see, a lot of big fans of the game have a few complaints, but mostly because they've seen they are comparing to other similar games, and
yeah, but for me, it's been a while since I actually played a really good city builder. The last one I played was City Skylines.
Yeah,
and that was forever ago. That was forever ago when it came out.
No, actually, I was playing this, and this to me, it's kind of basically more the Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, but with updated graphics. But yeah, actually, I played it, and it's actually pretty fun and a little addicting as well.
Yeah, you always want the next dinosaur. And then you think the Velociraptor's a little too aggressive. And they break out and start murdering people.
Yeah, even if you got electrified concrete walls,
they'll still break through it.
Yeah,
electrified concrete walls? What the fuck?
Oh, this is actually the most powerful fences you can get for your dinosaurs. They're meant to be for the bigger, meant to keep in the bigger, more dangerous creatures.
I see.
Yeah, of course, actually, because interesting is if you even got a Struthiomimus that have below comfort levels, and actually want to get out, it itself will eventually break through the concrete wall. This most basic dinosaur, the Struthiomimus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyhow, those are actually pretty good. Of course, there are some people that actually do complain about some of the dinosaurs' accuracy. See, when you get to the Giganotosaurus, the thing that made the Giganotosaurus so special was actually it exceeds the size of T-Rex. But in the game, it's actually smaller. Like, see, I actually see a lot of these like real reviews, and they actually talk about like some things that, because they actually are kind of like big dinosaur experts, and some things that don't seem to add up to them. Like,
do they have any dinosaurs with feathers?
and
No.
no,
There's the first dinosaur that kind of resembles a bird.
the Struthiomimus. Like, I think like Jack Corner actually addressed this shortly after the release of Jurassic World, saying why they didn't add feathered dinosaurs, and it's because they were actually trying to like keep it consistent with the other movies.
Yeah, well, I'm sure our resident Ross Geller will be displeased with that.
Yeah, like Jack Corner, he's a paleontologist, and of course the thing is, like, when the first Jurassic Park came out, with a few exceptions, most of the dinosaurs were pretty accurate based on what scientists knew at the time. Like, of course, even though some of the exceptions, like with the Velociraptor, like, it's actually pretty accurate towards other dinosaurs that relate to the Velociraptor, just not specifically the Velociraptor.
You know, they could have done what George Lucas did and went back and CGI'd everything to give feathers to the ones that were supposed to have feathers.
No.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fan backlash. Looking at what with George Lucas Star Wars Special Edition, like.
Not to mention, they would look a lot less intimidating.
I don't know, man. I kind of like the digitally remastered edition of the original series of Star Trek. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that there isn't really that much different, but like, for example, my favorite episode of all time, the Enterprise incident, they've got the raptor image on the bottom of the V11 Stormbirds, or Gen, or Genir, or what some people will still insist is a Klingon D7 that the Romulans were flying, and they bring in a Talise as well, instead of just surrounding the Enterprise with 3 of those V11 Stormbirds. They've got 2 V11 Stormbirds, and then a Talise shows up, and then later on you see another scene that has, like, I guess there are 5 ships altogether, and 3 of them are V11 Stormbirds, and 1 or 2 of them are Talisir.
Yeah, like. Also, I'm wondering, like, do you think they should have, like, I don't know, like, digitally add ridges to the Klingons when they remastered
No, fuck no. I mean, they've already explained that augment virus and all that stuff.
Yeah, like. Or digitally remastered them to look like Discovery Klingons.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
No, because they do have that explained in hard canon as the augment virus, blah blah blah. That, and they don't really talk about it a lot because, like, whenever Worf was asked about it, he said something like, "We do not discuss this."
Yeah, like with Outsiders, like, which kind of would leave a lot of fan speculation, like.
Yeah, but they did kind of make it plain that it was some kind of an augment thing that they had done to themselves. And this reminds me of my favorite thing that Worf ever said. And I thought he had said it at least once in one of the series, but apparently not. It's only in Star Trek Online where he goes, "Enough talk."
I am not a merry man.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking like in before like the Enterprise, like I think there was actually an RPG book that gave a alternate explanation. It's actually is very similar to what they did with Voq and Discovery. Like, I can't remember exactly, but it was actually an RPG book that they actually did give an alternate explanation. Do you know which one? Like,
No, my familiarity with the tabletop RPGs of Star Trek is pretty limited, and it's mostly about Romulans. I've got the FASA book on Romulans. I think there are a couple of books from FASA, and then I've got The Way of Dara from the Last Unicorn Games version of the Star Trek RPG.
Yeah, but basically, like, it's kind of like their explanation is that the Klingons actually purposely go through some kind of like surgical procedure to make them look like that, which I think as in the meat and it's supposed to be like some kind of like it's supposed to be used as some kind of like psychological warfare, like make themselves look more like their enemies, like. But when you think about it, like I think actually like they actually took some of that and put it in Discovery.
Well, you know, it wouldn't really be inconsistent with what they've said in hard canon about the augment virus. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be surgery, but certainly they had to do something to resequence their DNA with this virus somehow.
Well, actually, did you see Discovery and know about like the twist about the Klan character about Bach?
No, I still haven't. I mean,
It's actually a major spoiler, and it's like, see, I think we'll probably mention it in the Fleet Channel in the spoiler section where I was talking to like Tyrannus about like some of the twists they put out in Discovery, and I assume you didn't read those yet. Like,
I scanned through everything in there, but I haven't ever finished playing the new missions yet, and I guess there's a new one out now too, huh? So I haven't gotten that far yet, and I've kind of not read in great detail. I just kind of skimmed through it all.
Oh, you should actually play through all the missions, and of course, like this new one, it actually directly continues off the last of the previous one, which I think if you want to get the full story, you should play all the Victor's Live missions before playing this one.
Yeah, I will play them all in order. I've played the first 3 or 4. I was planning to go ahead and play the rest of them, but then so much other crap was going on at the time that I never got back in. I finally made it in again. I guess it was Tuesday or Wednesday night, and it was so late at that time that I just went through and made sure there were some projects for the fleet holdings on both of the main fleets, and I did finish off one of the projects in the KDF Allied Academy and started a new one there. So I didn't really do much. I just kind of did fleet maintenance type stuff, and I didn't actually play anything at all. I didn't even go into a queue. It was so late. I was like, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then I'm going to go to bed. And of course, I didn't. I did it, and then I got distracted by Twitter or some shit. I don't remember now what it was. Twitter is always such a cesspool of stupidity and ignorance. There are a few good things there, but so often it's just some annoying drama and stupidity from, I mean, oh my goodness. If it's not the Hillary cult members, it's the far right-wing idiots who don't know the difference between socialism and communism, or I should say between, I mean, there are so many people who don't even realize that there are many different kinds of socialism, and they think that Marxist socialism is it, and they don't know the difference between Marxist socialism and Marxist communism. And if you try to explain to them that there's never been a communist society, they're like, oh, the no true communism thing again, blah blah blah. Well, I mean, like, look, dude, Marx himself describes what a communist society would be. It's classless and stateless. Do you think the Soviet Union was stateless? Is the People's Republic of China stateless? How about Cuba or North Korea? Any of these places that you think are communist, do any of them exist without a state? No. all of them have extremely powerful states. They're extremely statist forms of government. And do you think that anyone there is, living like without classes? No, there's party members and everybody else, so they still have socioeconomic classes and they still have a state. So they haven't ever made it to a communist society. And I don't really believe most of them have ever tried. I mean, there was, when the first Russian Revolution happened in May of 1917, the Mensheviks got in power. And the Mensheviks were not fanatics. They were Marxists, but they weren't like, let's kill everybody who disagrees with us type of thing. They were willing to work with social democrats, for example. They were willing to work with other kinds of socialists. And then the Bolsheviks had another revolution in October and took over and started killing everybody. You had Lenin, who was in charge for a while, and he was a Marxist socialist, and his chosen successor, Trotsky, was a Marxist socialist, but Lenin fell ill or became infirm with age or whatever. I don't remember exactly what happened, but anyway, he was not in a position to be in charge anymore, and Stalin started running everything, and he ran Trotsky out of the Soviet Union. And Stalin was never any kind of socialist. He was just Stalin. He wanted to be the boss, and he became the boss. And what he did with the Soviet Union was, I mean, he never even tried to realize Marxist socialism. He started moving it towards what we know as state capitalism, because Russia, when the revolution happened, when the first and the second revolution happened in 1917, it wasn't a capitalist economy. It was still mostly feudalist. So Stalin's idea was, we'll turn it into a capitalist society, we'll industrialize, and then we'll go into a Marxist socialist society. But it never got beyond the capitalist stage. It never got beyond the state capitalist stage. So it was always a state capitalist economy. And that was the big issue, that the fact that Marxist socialism was supposed to be a transitional phase between capitalism and communism. But you can't transition from capitalism to communism if you don't even have capitalism yet, according to Stalin anyway. So he came up with state capitalism. We're just going to replace all the landlords and factory owners with the state. So the state will be capitalist, and it will be the big boss, and I'll be the big boss of the state. And, maybe it would have worked and maybe it wouldn't, but I don't think it would have, because it seemed like it was more about grabbing power than trying to realize the ideals of Marx. Now, I am not a Marxist by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that his ideas would ever work in reality. There are certain types of communism which do work, but they only work on the very small scale, like a local commune. There's a place I think it's in Tennessee, called The Farm, which has, and it's not the farm that we're talking about here, Camp Peary, in the title of the stream we're in right now, but it's called The Farm, and it's a commune that's been around since the late 60s or early 70s, and the last I knew it was still in operation, and that was, less than 10 years ago. So, I mean, I haven't looked into it since then. So, I mean, there is that kind of communalism, communism, which will work on the small scale, but I don't think Marxist socialism would ever work anywhere, large scale or small scale, because it's just, the thing is, once you have a capitalist economy, the idea is to go into Marxist socialism, which involves a dictatorship of the proletariat. And then somehow, that's supposed to become a classless and stateless society. I've never heard of a dictatorship becoming a stateless society, and I don't think it's a realistic proposition. I think it's idealistic to the point of naivete, or it's just some kind of pie in the sky by and by when we die, religious kind of nonsense, mumbo jumbo. So, I mean, I've got a friend, he's been in some of the streams here, DDR Moog from Ireland, and he is a Marxist, and he says, well, that's not exactly, it's not going to just magically turn into, a classless and stateless society, but I mean, I'm hoping that he will come back on sometime and continue his explanation of what he calls orthodox Marxism and his own neo-Marxist view, which deviates from orthodox Marxism to some extent. But even so, Marxist socialism is only one kind of socialism. There were other kinds of socialism around before Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels came on the scene. They even criticized them and called them utopian socialism, while themselves coming up with, this rather utopian scheme of their own. But they called their version scientific socialism, which I find rather incredible. And I mean that in the literal sense of the word unbelievable. There have been other types of socialism before Marx and Engels. They didn't go away when Marx and Engels came along, and there have been other kinds of socialism which have developed since then. And most of the time, especially Americans criticizing socialism, they're not. They're criticizing Marxist socialism and are completely unaware that there are any other kinds of socialism. Well, socialism, Marx even used the term interchangeably. Yeah, well, Marx did, but that doesn't mean everybody does. How do you explain all these other kinds of socialism which were around before Marx came along? You don't, because you didn't know they even existed, you dipshit. Go study this shit before you come to me and try to criticize it, because you're not criticizing what I'm talking about. I am a socialist. I am a cooperative commonwealth eco-socialist, which is not Marxist. But yeah, anyway, there's always some kind of shit going on at Twitter. If it's not the Hillary worshippers, then it's these right-wing guys who want to talk shit about things they don't even know about, much less understand. And then, of course, you've got the outrage mongers, regressives, or social justice warriors, or whatever you want to call them, who are always trying to attack those of us who actually are on the left and tell us how wrong we are and how we're racists and sexists and blah 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 because we don't breathe, eat, and sleep identity politics. And I'm like, you guys, that shit just creates obstacles to attaining any kind of leftist goals. I've been through this repeatedly in various places, including on this channel. So, I mean, there's a video I did called Solidarity versus Intersectionality, which goes into some detail about why identity politics is not leftist. But, I don't want to belabor the point because I've talked about it incessantly. So anyway, yeah, I didn't actually go to bed. I wound up getting on Twitter or somewhere and getting into some kind of discussion with someone, which, as usual, went nowhere because it's hard to talk to a closed mind.
Yeah, like sometimes there are loonies on Twitter, like. Of course, a part of me kind of just want to go onto GRP parody just to make fun of them, like.
Oh yeah, there was some guy who started a parody account recently, where he posted a thing about how Justice Kennedy is going to be retiring, and what have you done to scream at Jill Stein? What are you going to tell your children about how you screamed at Jill Stein over this? Go and scream at her now, and shit like that.
Actually gotta tell you something, some of these people, I see on Twitter actually makes Paul Joseph Watson seem sane,
right?
Actually, I think I got an example that I can actually make. Actually, I did make fun of this guy on Garapi, but here, let me bring it up, and you can see for yourself, like I really mean like these people kind of make Paul Joseph Watson like seem pretty sane, like because.
Where are you posting it?
The text channel, the text channel, like it's actually a quote retweet that actually did with this guy who's clearly a fan of JF Therapy and alternative hypothesis, and he's trying to mock Paul Joseph Watson in something that when you think about it, this is actually one occasion where PJW isn't wrong in what he's saying, but I'll just take a look at what maybe just click on to see the full context.
Yeah, I see it. So apparently PJW said, ban junk food ads to stop obese kids? No. And this other guy comes in and says, my liberty to engage in degeneracy, Paul Joseph Watson 2018. And your parody account replied, I agree that parents being responsible for their children is degenerate. It's also a major game killer.
Yeah, like, see, like, basically Paul Joseph Watson making the case saying that the way to fight child obesity is to actually have parents take more responsibility in what they feed their kids instead of, like, banning all these junk food ads. Like, see, what he's saying isn't wrong, and you can actually see his point, but
this person replied to you, and it looks like at first they didn't realize you were mocking them. Said nice, and then came back and said, agree and all, but the mental illness is too much. The best advice I can give you is to seek help. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like,
wow.
See, like, if you're going, like, if you're going to, like, mock PJW, like, there's
a lot of things there's a lot of things he said that you can easily mock him for, but it kind of takes, like, a whole other level of insanity to actually pick apart a few things he actually said that makes sense, and to say that that's bad, like.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, like, I guess if you kind of, like, try to make an argument saying that he's not telling the truth and he's being a hypocrite, I guess if you show evidence, I can probably get that. But he just simply said that the idea of, like, banning junk food, like, the idea of not banning junk food ads is bad, like, and because it's apparently, like, because it promotes degeneracy, and, like, banning junk food ads is, like, not banning junk food ad promotes degeneracy for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. These guys use the word degeneracy so much. I think half of them have no fucking clue what it means.
Yeah, like, I kind of like they kind of like, I see what Paul Joseph was really saying, and I kind of, like, sort of put in, like, a joke about, like, DRP's passenger as well. Like, it's a major game killer. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we've been going for 2.5 hours, a little more than 2.5 hours. So I think it's time to call it a night, and I can get up tomorrow and do some things, hopefully, that I need to do. But thanks for joining us, both of you, and to Anime-Mun and Union Aerospace, who were here earlier. Thanks to the handful of people who watched, and hopefully some people will tune in and watch, you know, after we're no longer live. As always, have fun, but stay safe. For Republic News, this is Liviana signing off.